Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Bitwave Quick Hit. Today, we're talking about digital asset treasury. Pat, more and more enterprises are getting into crypto. What do treasury teams at these companies need to think about?
Yeah. Okay. So first and foremost, treasury teams are expected to be very, very conservative parts of businesses that are like, minding the shop, keep the money in one single place. So first and foremost, it's the sad truth about it is that crypto is going to move really, really fast. It's going to push treasury teams a little bit hard. So first and foremost, like get in your head, like you're going to have to start to adapt to this stuff and think about these things differently. Okay. So let's start thinking about like what are the different ways the digital assets work. The biggest difference, from a traditional asset to a digital asset, maybe comes down to the fact that there's a very very high difference in what you would think about as risk profile. So as a treasury team, you're going to be asked to take care of cash. Great, that's pretty easy. You put it in a bank account. You're going to be asked to take care of securities from time to time. Great, those go into a treasury account or some sort of like trading account. And U.S. backed treasuries tend to be right. There's volatility there, but it's not crazy, right? Like you buy a share of Coca-Cola, it'll go up and down and the world changes, but like you don't tend to be worried about a couple of really critical things that matter in the crypto world. So when you buy a share of Coca-Cola, you're not worried that the network that you bought that share on. So I guess let's say TD Ameritrade or JP Morgan. You're not worried that JP Morgan is suddenly going to get hacked and all your Coca-Cola is going to get swept away into somebody else's account. Because worst case scenario, if that did happen, you would not be out anything. Like there's no universe where actually securities move like that. And so you would not be out anything. And there's a very, very low chance that like the net like JP Morgan itself getting hacked would lead to your whatever your cash that's in those accounts getting moved away. In the crypto world, you have these layers of trust. And so let's start with the bottom layer. The bottom layer of trust that you're thinking about is the network. So whether this be Solana or Ethereum or Bitcoin, every one of these networks at some point has had a serious network level issue that caused disruption to the price of assets, potentially sweeps and moved assets away from folks that had them legitimately, halts on the network. So Bitcoin famously had early on the Bitcoin lifetime, it famously had a halt. You still see this from on Solana from time to time. There'll be a day you wake up on Solana and the network is just halted and you can't move assets no matter what you want to do. So the first thing to think about is you need to start thinking about risk just a little bit differently. Whereas previously you thought about risk around the asset itself. So I'm holding the real. Is that risky or not? But now you have to go one level deeper and think about risk of the network itself. You then will often be working with either a custodian or if you're self-custodying, that's even scarier. So if you're working with a custodian, there's a custodian out there, Coinbase, BitGo, whoever it is. You have to be doing a risk analysis of them. Are they a good partner? How much are they charging you? Because you now suddenly have a leakage that is where every day a little bit of money is going away because your custodian is charging you that. So you're now making a choice between like, well, there's this budget, Bill's budget custodial services over here, and then there's Coinbase over here. These guys are only charging me 1 bip. These guys are charging me 3 bips. Like, well, how do I make that decision? So you start thinking about like risk in terms of the risk of the operators, the risk that they might get hacked, all that kind of stuff. If you're self-custodying, that's a whole different thing because I don't think a lot of enterprise businesses, treasury teams, think about the idea of cash boxes. Like, I mean, that's not really yet. Like, yes, often you will systemically think about cash registers and how you do cash in and cash out and all that kind of stuff. But that's very different than every single developer on your developer team having a wallet that could have, they happen to buy some coin, some random coin 3 years ago that just for whatever reason moon and is suddenly worth like $3 million. Like that doesn't happen in cash registers. Like you don't generally come back like checking your cash register and it has 3 million extra dollars in it. But that can absolutely happen in the crypto world. So and the other things about that is like that wallet, you need to know where the private key is. You need to know who has access to the private key. You need to be monitoring it. You need to know about that wallet, period. Right. So that's something you suddenly got to this point of like controls around tracking funds tracking wallets, getting notified when a new wallet is created. How does Treasury get notified? Because it's your job to track that. You're ultimately responsible to make sure that you know how much is in that wallet, who has access to it. If that person gets fired, what do you do? So now you not only are you're worried about the network, you're worried about the custodian. If you are self-custodying, you're worried about the operational security, and you have to start learning about operational security for something like private keys, about the person who holds it. What happens if they get fired? What happens if one of the coins they have in their wallet moons and they decide to run away to Argentina or to Costa Rica to live on $5 million of moon money for the rest of their lives? How do you deal with that? Are you keeping private key backup somewhere? Are you keeping, are you keeping, do you have some sort of key management strategy in place? What does that kind of look like? And then on top of all that, you have the asset risk. So I talked about moon money, but like moon money might go up, moon money might go down. That's the way crypto works. And so you're thinking about, okay, we're going to hold as part of our treasury strategy, we're going to hold USDC. Okay, great. USDC is stable, all that kind of stuff. We're going to hold Bitcoin. Well, Bitcoin, it's stable in the broadest sense of the term, but it also recently had a $15,000 3-day fluctuation from like 75K down to 60K back up to 67. So I mean, like from a treasury team, boy, that's not super fun. The amount of volatility you might be seeing in an asset like that. So you're thinking about network risk, custodial or custodial or counterparty risk or employee risk, and then the asset level risk on top of it. So the number one thing, that was a very, very long way of saying that when you traditionally think about risk from a treasury standpoint, and you really are just looking at like yield risk or like bank risk and simple things like that, the risk of the entire U.S. monetary system falling apart. Crypto is very different. You have to think about risk in a very, very different, more holistic, more systemic way.
All right, let's drill into it. How do digital assets differ from regular assets?
Yeah. So there's a few different things here that you have to know. First of all, the volume. One of the things you'll see is that the volume of the speed of money. So speed of money is this term of like how many transactions are happening, how fast it's moving around. Crypto moves very, very quickly, and at any business that's getting serious about digital assets, you're going to see the number of transactions in your business just absolutely skyrocket. Um, the number of wallets will be enormous. So I once had a drink. I was at a happy hour during a conference with one of a sales executive from one of the treasury management systems, and I said, "All right, just out of curiosity, like let's take Coca-Cola, a big multinational organization. What like in their instance of this, how many bank accounts do they have?" And he's like, "Oh my God, they have so many. They have like 600 bank accounts." That is in the crypto world. That is a tiny number of accounts at a business. Like that is a one of our smaller customers will easily have 600 wallets, 1,000 wallets. One of our bigger customers will easily have 10,000, 100,000 wallets. Like the amount of wallets you're tracking is completely different. So to that extent, like, a lot of the traditional TMS systems you can't put 10,000, 100,000 wallets into some of these systems. You also can't put a lot of the assets that they're tracking into these systems. You also can't put the volume. So if you try to push the cash subledger systems that are out there, you try to push 100,000 transactions a day into one of those, they will either break down or they'll send you a very hefty cloud bill on the other side of it. So you're already in a point where you have to go to Bitwave, and Bitwave can help you track these at scale. We can help you integrate into your treasury management system by pushing into Kyrebas and G Treasuries of the world. We can help you with all these types of things, but you have to start getting in your head that like you'll probably have to do some different processes, some different models, and work with some new solutions, Bitwave, to actually get the
Right.
data that you need.
So Treasury traditionally manages yield, sweeps funds to payment accounts. How do traditional Treasury functions happen in the digital asset world?
Yeah. Okay. So first and foremost is visibility. Like observability of your assets is the best. So you get Bitwave, you put all of your wallets in there. That gives you visibility to all of your assets across all of your systems. So now you're going to make a decision about yield. And the yield in the crypto world, there's a million different ways to make yield. There are way too many ways to make yield in the crypto world. And some of
Yeah.
them are more or less legitimate than other ones that are out there. So the first thing is like you want to put your stable coins to work, because fundamentally, just so everyone's on the same page, stable coins are just T-bills that you don't get any of the yield from. So like if you have a stable coin on your balance sheet, you've picked up, for what it's worth, like just think about this. You've picked up a risk of a T, like whatever a T-bill traditional risk is, you've picked that risk up, but you're getting no yield on it if you're just keeping it in one of your wallets. So the first thing you want to do is you probably want to optimize the types of stable coins you're holding and partner with the custodians that will give you yield on that. So a great example is Coinbase and Circle have partnered so that Coinbase can issue USDC, and if you keep your USDC on Coinbase, they will, like, Circle will split the yield that they're getting from the T-bills and bonds and stuff like that they use to back their stable coins. They'll actually split that back with you. So you can get 3.5, 4% for your stable coins on there. It's a little bit riskier because they're tend to be doing shorter term T-bills, like 90-day T-bills, things like that. But if that's where you are, you kind of want to drill into that, make sure that fits your risk appetite, then you can earn yield very easily there. That's like about the lowest level of risk you possibly can be looking at in terms of yield. And it scales all the way up to incredibly risky DeFi strategies you can do. Now, maybe you want to do that. Like maybe you have a person on your team who's super passionate about crypto and wants to go and earn, do some yield farming. Don't put all your funds there, but it's a great way to put your money to work and earn a little bit of extra on it. So that's how you think about yield. Like there's, probably the number one way to think about it is get your asset into a stable coin or into one of the other yield bearing assets that you can then do. There are folks, there have been companies over time that you could give them Bitcoin and then they would actually rehypothecate and give you a yield back. A lot of those guys have gone out of business. A lot of those companies were operating illegally. So be careful about that. But that is another option. And then there's other options where credit cards can earn you crypto back if that's something you're interested in. But I'd say the number one thing to do on yield is find a good exchange that will give you a percentage back of the T-bill funds that you're getting on the stable coin anyways, that the company itself is capturing. Okay, second of all, once you have a really good observability strategy in place, now you can start doing stuff around sweeps. So Bitwave has some capabilities where you can actually get alerts when wallets hit certain levels, and then you can go and sweep funds into those. Part of our payments product is the ability to basically look at what your spend is going to be over the next week or the next month and properly fund those accounts. There's ways to automate it if you want to automate that. There's ways to automate yield too if you want to look at automating that. So a lot of the traditional treasury stuff, there's not, Bitwave has a lot of it, but it's still a little bit nascent right now. We're doing more and more around actual orchestration and treasury orchestration and things like that. So get ready for that. But that's all, some of the stuff you might be used to from your traditional treasury management system, really, really sophisticated sweeps and movements and all that kind of stuff. That's still pretty nascent in the crypto world. That's only now coming out from, products like, a product like Bitwave.
Yeah. All right, Pat. Thanks so much for chatting with us today about crypto treasury operations.